Have you ever felt like you were stuck in the restaurant business? Maybe you've been in one level and hadn't been able to move up. That is the situation that I would call spider webs in the restaurant business. They are places where you may get stuck and not even know why. My name is Neal Hollingshead. This is Restaurant Within, and we talk about things that go on within the four walls of the restaurant business. Today, we're talking about spider webs, which is all the things that can get you stuck in the restaurant business. In 2025 and 2026, across the United States, restaurants averaged 75 to 80% annual turnover. 41% of the servers in this industry turn over. 43% of the heart of the house in 2025, 26, 28% of the managers. One in every three managers in those 2 years were changed out. The expense for that, you're talking about $2,300 for employee level people. I don't have the numbers for the salary level people, but it's probably ten to $15,000 a manager by the time you get them through training. 35 to 40% of those people that turned over cited that it was because of monetary reasons, whether it be inconsistent money or not enough money. 44% of the people that turned over in 2025, 2026 in our industry said it was because of poor leadership. That's part of what we're going to go over today, because some of the counters for people that are running into the spider webs, the places where they get stuck, a lot of it has to do with leadership. So we're going to start off and we're going to go over, first of all, before you ever even get into a restaurant, there are a lot of people thinking about going into restaurants every year. And despite the fact that you may see a lot of people that actually get jobs in the restaurant industry, there's more than that that don't ever go to the restaurant industry. And they don't go to it because of the reputation of inconsistent money, the poor environment, the way that you get treated by guests at time. There's a lot of reasons people don't go into that industry. The valuable thing in the restaurant industry is that it teaches you how to navigate all types of situations with the right words and the right composure to have success. But you've got to be willing to be able to go home every night and reflect on what happened with who and how, and get to a place where you can navigate your way through that. Unfortunately, a huge percentage of the people that run into some of the challenges in the restaurant business just leave and they go to the next job and they run into the exact same things they ran into that next job and they leave, because your behavior circles back to you. And we've all worked with those one or two people that everybody just loved. If you're one of those people that everybody loves, then you've learned to give off that energy to get good energy back to you. There is the personality piece, and then there is the habits of good behavior that create the value in the job that you have. As a server, that might be hospitality and salesmanship. It might be good teamwork. Unfortunately, I have people that throw this teamwork word up in the air at me like it is just candy. And that's just a piece I've never coached before. I believe that if you assemble a group of people in your restaurant that all are trying to go above and beyond, you'll find that teamwork is amazing. Now, you can throw suggestions up in that environment on how to make teamwork better, places where people can do a better job of doing what you need them to do. And in that environment, you'll probably get some results. But if you're in one of those environments that we have a lot of staff members that are not interested in doing teamwork because they're not going to do anything extra, I don't care how much you coach teamwork, you're not going to get it. There is a good chance that teamwork has to do with the chemistry inside of those four walls. And no matter what brand you're working for, no matter how big the company is, what the owners are like, the way it feels to be inside of those four walls in that restaurant is 100% because of the people inside of those four walls. You can take anything and turn it into restaurant mastery if you try hard enough. The number of people that don't go into the restaurant industry ever to begin with and don't ever even apply, a lot of those is because of the reputation. The least spoken side of every story is the company's side and the manager's side. I think there's a lot of validity to the things that you hear, the inconsistency with behavior. It's one of the reasons for this podcast. I'm focused on trying to help create a more consistent culture of how we behave in the business to give people a better opportunity to have more positive lives, not to mention better careers. But the process of even coming into the business is hectic. In the last 2 weeks alone, I have known at least 3 people that went into a restaurant to get an interview and nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew they were coming. What if that was one of those people that has never been in the industry before and they don't understand that you may be bogged down in the back, or they don't understand that there may be other issues happening? They're never coming back there again. If nobody ever spoke to them, and I've seen people sit in a restaurant for an hour and a half waiting on a manager to come speak with them. That's ridiculous. And I know that you can get slammed, but if you get slammed, send word back out. Ask them to come back tomorrow at 2. Don't let them sit there for 2 hours. There's just no reason for that. When people come to work in the restaurant business, I almost wish they would make 18 the minimum age limit, because there's just too many times where there's somebody that's either still in high school and they get caught up with servers or cooks that are partying and going out every night. And it just gets kids off track too often. And I know that as you get older, you have to be grown, you make your own decisions, and ultimately you do whatever you decide to do. That's a big piece of the influence of young people that I would just be very careful with. And then there's the hiring practices. The less experience the leadership has in the building, the more likely they are to be hiring out of desperation. I have people that I've heard of in the last 6 months that are hiring people. They don't even do a good job of setting the expectations of how much money they're going to make, or what their schedule is going to be, or what the attitude's going to be. What is it going to take? What's in it for me? How's this going to be a win-win? It's not just hiring out of crisis, but then there are red flags in the interview that people will tend to overlook if they're trying to crisis hire and they hire somebody based off of availability instead of qualifications. Then you get into the training part of it. Trainees are oftentimes the most silent part of a program. Inexperienced people read that wrong. You don't need to make the mistake of thinking that just because you hired somebody that really isn't saying anything right now, that they don't have a lot to say. The issue with somebody new is they haven't found anybody they trust yet to say it to. Winning those people over and giving them an ear every day to lean to so that you can have honest, open conversations. I poke at people all the time. They poke back at me all the time. We learn to get adjusted to the camaraderie back and forth, and trainees get into that sometimes. And when they first come in the door and I can sense that maybe we've got a little bit of a connection going on, I try to get that camaraderie started with them too, because the more I can get them to talk and the more I can begin to fix the words. Are they going to run into people training? Even if you've got the best trainer in this world, what if they have a bad day? What if all of a sudden things don't go their way and that's all that trainee knows about your establishment is that it runs like crazy because this trainer had a bad day? Maybe that trainer is bitter at the moment. Maybe they're frustrated. Maybe there are things that are going on that all of a sudden they want to talk about that a trainee don't need to hear. I've only walked up on that 1,000,000 times in my career. A general manager needs to lead the charge. The trainers need to be right behind them, and they need to have meetings at least once a quarter and get aligned on top 5, bottom 5 people in the organization so we know where our trainers are coming from. We've got the managers focused on anybody that maybe we need to help up to try to get them up to speed, to kind of keep them moving with us, make sure that they're in the game. But there's a lot of different influences on a trainee that make a big difference as far as whether or not they truly learn the art of their role. And that is something that's lost in the business to me right now. There are so many people out there that are okay at doing what they do. I consider myself sometimes to be one of those people, but I try my best to stay focused on how do I go home that day and improve a little bit. When I think about things in terms of numbers, if I retained 9 out of 10 employees in the last 30 days or 60 days, how do I get to where I'm retaining 10 out of 10? Do I hire a little bit better? Do I train a little bit better? Do I get connected a little bit better? Because ultimately, the habit of going home and getting better is probably what sustains careers in this industry. Because a restaurant that stays the same day after day, I think history has proven they typically go out of business. So if the business has to change over time, it only makes sense that you're going to have to change with it. So don't get all defensive about every time they want to change the size of an order of fries or they're going up on the menu. And let me go ahead and share something else with you. As these businesses go through these changes, as they change prices, as they change menu items, as they change systems, as they change all these things, I would say 98% of the time you're going to have an employee, a manager, or a guest say, "You're ruining the whole business. You've made the change that's going to tear the place down." If a business manager is making an adjustment out there, there needs to be a process to do that with, and do it very carefully, because I hope they're not right. I'm sure at some percentage of the time they will be, but I can only tell you in my career, 99.9% of the time when an employee, manager, or guest makes that statement, they have no idea what they're talking about. What they're trying to say is, you just changed something that I really like. But it's going to sound like you're destroying the business. You did it the wrong way. And that's going to come out every single time that you make a change. But as far as the culture is concerned in a restaurant business, you have to provide an environment that makes people feel good to go there. I start that off in the interview process. I typically smile when I'm going up to an interview, and I make sure I have good energy when I'm going up to an interview, because that's the first moment that you're actually starting to market yourself and what it is going to be like to work in your place and what it's like to work for you, because you're going to have to take somebody that's sitting at that table that is not going to have the verbal capability, the emotional capability to truly come after it every day. They're just not there with you yet. They ain't even sure they want to be in the building just yet. They're taking a chance. They probably want to buy an Xbox and they just need some money. You have to reach out to them. It's got to be done in such a way that ultimately you are teaching them to reach out to you. In the beginning, it's 100% the leadership in the building and the trainers and all the people that are involved, because that trainee has to trust that there is a place to go to make corrections. There is zero chances that you're going to get the 100% of a culture right for a new person. There's no chance. Between the schedules that we make, between the way that we interact with people, between the feedback that they get, whether it's too much or too little, or the way they got that feedback, whether they digest by putting their hands on things, do they digest by reading stuff? All of that stuff matters as far as whether they fit the culture that you have. There's going to have to be calibrations. You stand 0% chances of being 100% to a trainee unless they can communicate with you. And I tell people that before I hire them. They have 0% chances of being 100% for me unless I can communicate with them. We have to agree on that to begin with, because there's no chance that we're going to walk into a restaurant together and be a perfect match for each other straight out of the gate. It's just not going to happen. That culture is going to affect a lot, because if that person can't come to you and then they vent to somebody who's not a trainer, well, guess what? Now you have accidentally created a heat-seeking missile for a grapevine. They're going to find the grapevine and they're going to contribute to it. And they're going to be right there with the people that have been there for usually 3 to 9 months is where the heat of that grapevine comes from. And there'll be one long-term person kind of cheering it the wrong way in the background. So it's the others that get in the trouble. That's how you never catch them. So the grapevine is one thing, and they get caught up in that, and they start feeling more bold in their negativity because they've found others that feel the same way that they are. And now we've created a relatively new person, and the normal activity is negative. The net negative activity is something that from a culture point of view cannot tolerate. The manager, the leadership, and especially the general manager has to understand how they are the nucleus of everything that happens in that building. Even if you weren't there, even if you didn't know somebody that well, or you had nothing to do with the situation, you have to be able to say, yeah, but I'm the one that hired that person. Now let's look back at how that happened. Did I do the homework right? Did I do a background check? Did I bring in the right person? How did this person get here, and how did this situation occur? Is it something that I didn't push hard enough before I took my off day? Is it something that just happens in a team and that just, this is a 1 in a million? It has nothing to do with me. But you have to get to the bottom of that as a GM, because 99.9% of the time you can go home and make small adjustments and change that whole organization. What you have to prove to that team is that you are able to change and keep up with the times, and therefore they need to be able to do the same. And if you can do that for each other, then you can find some unity and some longevity. And a lot of times those situations turn into lifelong relationships that just last forever. Because the worst thing that happened to a trainee, and the way it feels in the beginning, is that nobody owns the mistakes. And I've seen that in my whole career. People make the mistake of thinking that owning a mistake is blame equals consequence equals job security. And unfortunately, there's enough times where that's proven true that it is scary and dangerous for people to reflect and say, you know what? I caused this today. Let me make an adjustment so I don't cause this tomorrow. When I take a shot back at something that didn't work, I can get sometimes a little bit paranoid about how it happens, how I'm going to fix it, what happened. I mean, the reflection on me, what does that mean? Because the loss of a job is to destabilize a whole family. That's scary stuff. And that's some of the things that a lot of owners and managers forget about when they're dealing with a lot of these situations. But a lot of times you end up with 2 different groups in a restaurant. You end up with a management team that's all tight and one covers for the other, and employees hate that worse than anything. And then you've got the employee side, which is usually a pretty good look at what the culture is going to be for a trainee. And they're going to talk about all the different things that really happen to them on a day-to-day basis and all the things that they typically like and don't like. The only thing the managers are going to hear is going to be the stuff that they don't like. As far as leadership reacting to blame or never knowing the details of information that's going on in a restaurant, I shock people often when they come up and ask me the question about something that they don't even know I'm aware of. And then I express details to them that I'm aware of that they're not even aware of. They're in awe because that's somebody that's kind of passionately paying attention. It doesn't happen that way every time, but it should happen that way fairly often. If you're paying attention, you're engaged in that restaurant. And I cannot tell you what that does for new people. When they think there's somebody there who really owns this whole place, it makes the whole situation much better. It's much more digestible. But I tell people when I'm hiring them, every time you hear somebody in this building say they made this change, they're really talking about me. So if they are not making somebody happy, feel free to let me know, because that's typically me. And I don't know what it is about they and them, but they and them do more things than we're ever going to be able to make up for. The other thing that trainees don't like is no positive coaching. Once somebody comes to work for you and they have a whole history of a career, even if it's only 2 years long, what have they done? What do they bring to the game? Because this industry is obsessed with what you can do for me. But the magical part that gets missed that's truly helpful is they're going to bring some stuff from other places that they've worked. 90% of the time in the restaurant industry, even the employees that you hired 30 days ago, 90 days ago, 6 months ago, your trainers, your managers, everybody wants to prove to a trainee that they know more than everybody else. It's just part of the game. When you start off with listening and catching up with what people know how to do and how they can automatically go ahead and start contributing to your organization now, and you get excited because the person already knows how to bust a table, or they already know how to fill up a drink. Man, thanks. I know you're going to be able to help us out here. But the more that you spend on stuff they already know, the more secure. You're already building some pride. You're already building some credibility. Every time you do that and you recognize something that really going well, something that this person brings to the game, you are starting to build a bank that when something doesn't go right, you've got a bank to draw from. Because if you haven't spoken to that person the last 30 days they've worked here, and we all know after you've been out of training for 2 weeks, about 50% of the people that you hire at that point know everything. They are not interested in learning anymore. Now, that can be broken. You can train out of that by teaching people when they come to work for you that it's a never-ending process of learning. But if you don't cover that, then what you're going to end up with is a lot of people that are stuck in their ways, that don't want to change anything, that always know best. I've worked for organizations that have thousands of restaurants. They'll make a slight change, and I'll hear everybody in the company knows better than all of them. I don't get it. These people that have been in the restaurant business all of their life, and especially at administrative level, they may not know how everything works all the time in the operators level, but I guarantee you they've done their homework. You catch a restaurant that's actually keeping up with the times, they're not doing that by accident. Getting a restaurant that can keep up with the times is an animal. And the people that I've ever worked for that were able to do that were all very amazing individuals. What they knew, what they controlled, what they understood, how they behaved, their social and leadership abilities have all been astounding. So I can't relate to somebody who goes to work and 6 months into a serving, bartender, cook, or manager position says, oh, these people don't know what they're talking about. I can't even relate to what's going through their head. Only thing I can think of is YouTube driving them crazy. They've watched enough YouTube now they think they know what's going on. But another thing that hurts people is the energy in the room. And there's got to be a leader that brings energy to that restaurant. And I saw it online over the last 7 days, the number of people that complain about favoritism. Favoritism is one of those things that people typically lean on when things don't go their way. They didn't get that promotion because they wasn't related to the manager, or they wasn't friends with the manager. Because what a lot of underdeveloped people don't understand, whenever you go to work every day, and I get it because you want to spend time around the people that you have good chemistry with, and you might only have good chemistry with 1 or 2 people, but you hang around those 1 or 2 people every time you go to work, and what you're telling everybody else in the building is that you don't really care for them at all. Now, you don't mean to be sending that. It's unintended consequences, but that's the message that you're sending. And that's going to come back to you, whether you meant it to or not, whether it's because somebody wouldn't run your food or somebody wouldn't pick up your shift or whatever, it's coming back to you. And so that's something in the last 10 years that I've definitely learned more than anything, is that it's very difficult to hold yourself accountable to giving positive energy on a level of consistency that it comes back to you regularly, because too many people get hung in a spider web and they start to behave the way the industry teaches you to behave. And when I say that, I mean, if nobody runs your food, you're not going to run theirs. If nobody picked up your table, you're not going to pick up theirs. If nobody is nice to you, you're not going to be nice to them. And the industry begins to change you. And my message through this whole podcast and through every one of these recordings that I ever do is to throw all of that junk away and go into a restaurant and find a way to give it 100%. Find a way to get all the spider webs out of the way and do the best that you can do. Because a huge percentage of people on this planet will never know what they could have done because they never found enough reasons to put 100% into something. You can't let that happen to you. This is your time. It's your life. When you go in to get training and the whole process is unorganized, they don't know how to get you clocked in. They don't know what your schedule is going to be. Or people didn't know you were coming to train every day. Or they don't know what position you're supposed to be in. That's a disaster. That's the worst thing that can happen to a trainee. And it makes your organization look horrible because there's too many people that survive that. And when they survive it, what they survive with is the knowledge that dysfunction is the norm here. And you don't need that. Matter of fact, you're trying to prove the exact opposite when you're training somebody. You're trying to prove that everybody knows what's going on and that we are sharp and this is energized, it's fun, and we all know what we're doing, and we want to show you so you know what you're doing and you can have a successful career with great energy here. That's what you have to prove, like you're in a court of law with a trainee. And if you can't behave it like that the whole time somebody's in training, you're going to get the wrong thing. I ain't going to say it's going to be night and day, but I am telling you that you are not going to get what you want to get out of a trainee. You're not going to get that positive energy that's educated that can help you run a restaurant. But perceived favoritism is one of those things that can hurt people's feelings, even accidentally. Again, it's a manager just finding good energy with somebody. You're going to find that you don't have good energy with people who are not like you so much. But the veterans in this industry and the people who can truly create the awesome teams to work for, they use all of those differences as an advantage. The fact that all of you came from different walks of life, the fact that everybody's childhood was different, the fact that everybody's career was different. If you were to put that together in one person, you'd be bulletproof. You'd be able to do anything you wanted to do in any kind of way you wanted to. But you don't have that. You've all got your individual experiences, and learning to appreciate and welcome even the toughest of people. The more that you can do that, the stronger that team is going to be. Waiting to be noticed whenever you get hired is also a big issue with people. They just don't feel like you see what they brought to the game and what they are blinded by. For everybody that's in your organization trying to train them is all the stuff that you want them to know for you. And that's just tough. I'm not saying it won't work at some level, but it's a tough start. The sense of value when you get started off in a restaurant can be one of the hardest things to establish of all. The fact that you have value there, that there's something that you can bring that nobody else can. The stuff that you know you enjoy, the things that you know you can bring to the game, and then to make sure that somebody's willing to develop you on the stuff that maybe you're not as good as you'd like to be. You may never be. There's some things that people just naturally do not like. They may not ever be that, but there's also so many pieces of the restaurant industry that when people start to get developed, it's funny how they'll all of a sudden migrate to one section of the business that they really became passionate about. There's menu developments. There's the food side, which a lot of great chefs and stuff deal with the food side of the business. There's the accounting side of the business. There's software side of the business. There's training. There's HR. It just goes on and on. Not having a mentor in the business can make it very difficult on somebody that's new. The other thing a lot of restaurants suffer from, and I'm saying this to every server, cook, bartender, manager, general manager, other people's comfort zones get in the way of new people. You have to be able to take your trainers and pull them aside and try to make sure that they are open to different types of people, that they are appreciative of different types of people with different backgrounds, and they do a great job of welcoming people in that are obviously different than they are. Most careers don't fail because of talent. They fail because of invisible traps in the restaurant industry. The spider web that catches most people is comfort. Bad training creates problems that look like bad employees. To stop that, you've got to have managers that have a good system and setting the schedule before the trainee ever walks in for orientation. What your best employees tolerate becomes culture tomorrow. You've got to set it up every week and make sure that the expectations are very high. People don't get stuck because they can't grow. They get stuck because nobody's challenging them. The guy challenged people in orientation, not in a way where they have to do it or they're going to get fired, not no goofy stuff like that, but on a level to where, hey, let's see if we can get this done inside of 4 days. Let's do that. Have some fun with it. And then when they do it, man, do something nice for them. Have fun. It can be a blast. This whole industry can be something else, but you've got to be willing to take things in and push it out the right way. But you got to understand that the most dangerous person in the restaurant is the weakest employee, and it's that negative influencer that's going to hurt everybody else. The biggest career mistakes is waiting for someone to discover you. You have to take a leap of faith when you're in the restaurant business. It's too often that you're working hard and nobody sees you. I get that. It's happened to us all. And the higher you get up, the more that's going to happen to you. There's a lot that you're doing that nobody's ever going to notice. How do you stay persistent? First of all, hopefully you have seen somebody else get elevated, and hopefully it was somebody that worked hard that deserved it. You've got to stay on that path to be able to make that happen to you. It takes a lot of independence to be able to do that when somebody's not giving you feedback. It really helps to have somebody that can help you move forward. If you don't have that, then your resilience is what's got to shine through. And you got to remember one of the things everybody's got to throw away. If you're being honest with yourself, you're not really doing any of this for them. You're not doing anything for the owners, for the managers, for your coworkers. Doing things for all those people in our job performance is just professionalism. It's just maturity. But let's not ever forget that the reason we do all of this stuff is so that we can take care of a family and pay the bills. Let's straighten out the conversation that every time they do something wrong, I got to do something wrong. Because what your mission has got to be about is learning to navigate those situations. And keep this in mind. When you start a job and you're totally pumped up about doing that job and you can't wait to get to the next day of it, you need to be honest with yourself and ask, what makes that go away? You got to know what the answer to that is. Were you treated poorly? Did it just wear down on you? Did you work too many hours? Did you run into the wrong people? Is the culture wrong? You have to answer that question, because at the end of the day, there's nobody that's going to be prosecuted more than you for wasting your time. And so out of all the spider webs that come with this business, get that out of this podcast. Stay focused on what you can do to make sure that you stay on a path that makes the most of your time, which means I don't care if you're in a restaurant for 2 days, but in those 2 days, at least tell me that you used that whole facility to learn what you could for 2 days. If you can do that for 2 days, you can do it for a week. If you can do it for a week, you can do it for a month. You can do it for a month. You can do it for a year. You make a career out of learning what you can learn and growing where opportunities show themselves, because turnover is going to happen in this business. And I don't see any way you don't make your way to 6 figures in doing this. Or you can be one of the other millions of people online that are all victimized in bad situations and circumstances. And there are restaurants out there where all of that stuff is true, but you're the one that decided to go there. If something happens to me that's not what I want to happen, then I try to make sure that I go home and think about how to navigate my way out of that situation so that the owners are happy, my supervisors are happy, the people who work with me are happy, and I'm doing the thing that makes me feel good. Part of what the restaurant business will teach you is the mastery of bouncing back from things that don't go right. The longer you're with a company, the more things you know how to do, the less stress there's going to be, because you know how to bounce back from more and more stuff as you grow. I almost wish every training class had a scale for that. People are opportunistic. People do the things that are in their best interest 100% of the time, every time. That's not a bad thing. It's not a reason to feel bad about people. That's a fantastic thing, and it's completely human nature. It's just up to you to make decisions about who you're around and how you manage your time, so you're around people that their best interests are your best interests. But you got to quit thinking that it's for you, because that's probably not going to be the case. Celebrate, champion, utilize all the differences you can amongst each other. And then lastly, on this podcast, the counters for spider webs in the business of better HR practices, better hiring practices, better training, better benefits, better pay. All of those are good counters for the spider webs in this business. Get turnover below 26%, and that will make a huge difference in how it feels, because injecting a bunch of new people all the time can make an environment feel super turbulent. You got to have a plan to calm that down, and calm, fun, easy, profitable shifts are where everybody finds a good place to go here. You got to have a clear growth path for people when they get hired. People don't want to be stagnant. I don't know anybody that likes to suck at their job. Having a good recognition program helps a lot. Giving awards for them being with you a long period of time, the culture investment to make sure that where they're working, things work and not broke down pieces. Make sure that you have plenty of success stories and examples to give the people that work for you. Probably one of the most painful things that you can do really well when it comes to this topic is to do really good exit interviews. I don't mean just check it off the box so you can say you called somebody. I mean genuinely ask them. Let them know your opinion matters to me. I hired you. I felt good about you. You felt good about coming here and you left. Can you tell me what we could have affected that would have changed that? The more of that information that you can get out, the better you can be. A lot of the times, the things that you're going to hear, it's going to be manager related stuff. And it's going to be times you need to go back to the manager's meeting and say, hey, here's the things we probably could have done better for this person. That brings this episode to an end. Thank y'all for listening. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Hopefully these spider webs are something that you can stay out of. And hopefully this whole episode will help you to help others is really what I'm hoping for. So thank you. See y'all next time.